Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another pre-recorded lesson video. Today is Tuesday, November 17. Almost there, y'all. A couple more days, and you're gonna be on Thanksgiving break. So just give me your best. Try your hardest until then, and then you're gonna have a whole week off. Okay? So, a couple of announcements before we get started. Remember to complete your assessments. There have been two so far, the 3-week assessment, and I just uploaded the 6-week assessment yesterday. A couple of y'all have already finished it, and the grades so far are looking really great. So keep it up. I will be uploading a review of the assessment sometime next week whenever everyone gets that turned in so that you can see how I would go through it and see the right answers and how I got to them, okay? Also, grades are being finalized Friday for progress reports. I know it's a short turnaround from the last progress reports, but that's just because, Thanksgiving break, it's throwing a wrench in everything. So remember to turn in all your assignments and your assessments, most importantly, okay? But I think a majority of y'all are doing a great job so far. For the ones that have yet to turn in your assessments, I will be contacting parents this week, so make sure you get that done before emails go out to your parents, okay? But the learning goal for today, the main thing I want y'all to focus on in this lesson are the different attitudes toward the war. You know, how people view the war and what they think about it, and how Paul, um, takes all these opinions around him and how it's affecting him. Okay, that's the thing I really want y'all to focus on, are the different attitudes about the war, and honestly, let's focus really heavily on Paul's transformation. Okay, because we really get to see Paul's change in chapter 7. Okay, that's the chapter we're really going to be focusing on. I know chapter 7 I've had uploaded on the chapter summary PowerPoint for a long time, but we're finally getting into it today. Okay. And remember the important question, they have yet to change. The focusing question did change a couple lessons ago, but the main thing we're going to be focusing on are the attitudes toward the war. Okay. But this is module 2, lesson 20. We are almost near the end of module 2, just a couple more weeks. Okay. So remember, finish strong. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay. But let's get started with today's lesson. So chapter 7, just a quick brief summary. Paul goes back home. He's on leave. Leave basically means a soldier is allowed to go back home for a couple of days. In Paul's case, he's allowed to go back home for 17 days. He visits some family, some friends, and he goes back to his old town. Okay. But this entire time, he's feeling empty. He's feeling sad because he realizes that his home really isn't his home anymore, right? He's changed, and he knows that, everything that he used to like back then, he doesn't like now, or it doesn't make sense to him. And he's sort of sad to leave his fellow soldiers in the second company because he's worried that, something's going to happen to them while he's gone. He's scared to come back and someone's dead. And he's gone. He's gonna be gone for a while. He may be gone 17 days for leave, but he's also gonna be gone a couple extra weeks after that because he has to attend a training before he goes back and joins the rest of his soldiers. So he's really upset that he has to leave his fellow soldiers and he has to go back to basically a very strange place. Okay, and the strange place being his own hometown, and you're gonna see why he doesn't like it so much. So we're gonna be focusing on the biggest parts of chapter 7. So the first one are the different viewpoints or the different attitudes about war. So Paul actually talks to quite a few people whenever he's back home. First being his own mother. So Paul's mom wants to know if the war is bad, if he's had to kill people, how he's doing, and Paul essentially just lies to her. Okay, Paul basically just says, I don't really do a whole lot in the war. It's not as bad as people think it is. Everything is fine. Okay, Paul doesn't want to worry her. Paul's mom is actually sick. She has cancer, so she's, has to stay in bed. And whenever she does leave bed, she's always in pain. So Paul doesn't want to add stress to her or, have her worry about him, right? The opposite is said about Paul's dad. Paul's dad wants to know everything about the war, what Paul's doing, how many people he's killed, and that actually makes Paul very, very angry. Okay. He's basically saying he doesn't have a relationship with his dad anymore because his dad only wants to talk about war, and Paul doesn't want to talk about any of that. Paul just wants people to think that everything is fine at the war, and that he doesn't want people to worry about him. And Paul doesn't like talking about the war. The main reason he doesn't like talking about the war is because he thinks it's pointless. He says, "Why talk about all the pain and suffering I'm going through? It's not going to matter to these people. They won't understand it, right? Because they're not the ones that are there right now." Okay, and Paul does lie to a lot of people about what's happening, especially Kemmerich's mom. He visits Kemmerich's mom and tells her, how Kemmerich died, and he essentially lies to her. Kemmerich's mom knows that Paul is probably lying, but Paul says, "Hey, I promise on everything I hold dear. Kemmerich died swiftly without any pain, and he died fast." And as we all know, that's a lie. Kemmerich suffered for days and days and days. But Paul says that there's no point in being sad about his death or adding pain into Kemmerich's mom whenever, Kemmerich's already dead. So there's no point in telling her the truth. Okay. Another person that he talks to that has a different viewpoint about war are the civilians. Civilians are basically just regular people in his town that aren't fighting. So he sees a group of old men, and they tell him that they're very appreciative about Paul and the fellow soldiers that are fighting, and they're proud of them, but they're expecting more. They want them to do more to try to win this war, and that upsets Paul greatly. He says, "I'm the one that's fighting right now. Why are you the one telling me what to do? You don't even know what we're going up against." Right. And the old men are basically just saying, you should be trying harder to try to win. And that just upsets Paul a lot. Another person that had a different viewpoint about war is Kanarek. If you remember Kanarek, their old school teacher. Kanarek is now officially in the army. He got drafted. The army basically said, "Hey, we need more people. Kanarek, you are in the military now." And now Paul and the other classmates, the students in Kanarek's class, they all outrank Kanarek because they've been in the army longer. So now Kanarek has a different viewpoint on war, right? So I just want to emphasize all the different viewpoints about war, ranging from the civilians to the current soldiers, and how the current civilians have no idea about what's happening, and how Paul thinks it doesn't matter if I tell them the truth about what's happening because they won't understand it, right? There's a big thing that you need to take away from chapter 7. Another really big aspect about chapter 7 is that Paul feels super sad about the past. Paul doesn't like being on leave. He doesn't like being home because he feels like his home isn't really his home anymore. He's changed a lot, right? In the previous chapter, he says that he took his 18-year-old self and shot it to death, and that this is who he is now, right? War has changed him a lot. He says, he doesn't like being home and talking to his parents or walking around to where he used to be. He says he remembers all the stores on the street and he remembers all the buildings, but it just doesn't feel the same to him anymore. And whenever he's back home in his old room, he looks at the past books that he used to love reading whenever he was a student before the war, and now he opens a lot of the books up again and tries to read them, and he starts to say the words don't make sense to him. Because the words don't have any more effect on him because he's seen so much in his life already, and that everything that he used to like back then, it doesn't even matter to him anymore, right? And then he also talked to a couple of his old friends from back in the day, and his old friends are different as well. So we can really see a lot of Paul being a completely different person, and that's going to lead us into the next massive thing about this chapter. And the main thing I want y'all to take away is a transformation, right? War changes people, and we've seen that throughout this entire book, and you can finally see this change in Paul, especially whenever he goes back home, right? I've been emphasizing that about Paul changing throughout the book. We've seen it here and there, but in this chapter, you really see Paul changing. He's a completely different person than what he was before the war, right? Paul back then used to love reading. He wrote poems, listened to plays. He drew a lot. And now he thinks all of that is pointless, and because all he knows is war now, right? So you completely see a change. And this transformation from being one person to a completely different person because of war, that's one of the effects of war. It's one of the mental, psychological effects of war. And that's one of the main things that y'all need to focus on. That last essay that we're going to write at the end of this module, It's going to be your last major grade, and it's going to be an essay of y'all just analyzing one of the mental slash psychological effects of war. Okay, and this is one of the things that y'all could write about: the transformation or a change of someone's mental state of being a completely different person, or them not caring about what they used to care about. That's one of the mental effects of war, and that's what y'all could write about, right? In this chapter, you really see Paul changing from what used to be a very innocent boy to a very hard and bitter man now. He's had to kill a lot of people. He's seen a lot of his own friends die, and he's really losing hope. And you really see that in this chapter. There's a point earlier in the chapter where he is talking to a couple of French girls, and then he realizes that no matter who he has in his life or the company he has, he's always going to be a little bit empty inside now, right? Even the relationships in his life are slowly starting to deteriorate, right? It's falling apart because he's a completely different person now, right? He's not who he used to be. And this is something that y'all could focus on. There's a lot of events in this book that really show that Paul is changing, right? A lot of the people in the soldiers that you read about, they've gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, right? And that's going to lead us into what there is going to be an assignment that I want y'all to do. It's on your course homepage. Let me try to pull it up for you. Is right here. So it's called the character change assignment. So as you can see, these are the 5 big characters that we're reading about. And I want y'all to just choose an event that has happened to them. Okay. And basically, what I want y'all to do is list how it affected them, how that event affected them. Okay. I think it's going to be a pretty easy assignment. If you have any questions about it, obviously, just let me know. I'm always available to answer your questions. Okay. But that's basically it for this lesson. It's a nice short lesson. I think this lesson is really just getting y'all ready for that last essay about the effects of war, because this is a really big effect about war, right? We're focusing on the transformation caused by war, especially mentally, right? So before y'all do anything else, I want y'all to finish that major assessment I uploaded. It is called the not district, it's the 6-week assessment. I also labeled it as a major grade because it is. Finish that assignment I just uploaded. Remember, catch up in your other classes because grades are finalized Friday for new progress reports. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, let me know on through a Schoology message, email, or the question board. I'm always available to answer your questions, and I try to get to them as fast as possible. But other than that, that is it for this lesson video. And I will see you here for the next one. Bye.